And thank you to all you students who took the time to come out here today in this drizzly weather. Yeah, thanks to Jonathan for inviting me, and thanks to Marilyn for referring me. And Marilyn remembers working with me when I was a mere student here. I actually had a part-time job at the Alumni magazine where Marilyn was the photographer. So yeah, we worked together. Yeah, and I'm really proud to be standing on the stage where Jerry Springer stood my freshman year. I just remembered that when I came in here today. I'm like, whoa, this is where I saw Jerry Springer speak my freshman year, and I was just like blown away that I was in the same room with him. So anyway, yeah, so I'm very proud and grateful to, for my education that I got here at DePauw. I think it's an outstanding education. I'm going to be talking a little bit about how I think a liberal arts education is valuable, even in a tech field or some kind of field where you have to learn a lot of technology. So yeah, a little bit about me. I was a philosophy major here at DePauw and a math minor. I went on to study international politics overseas. And more recently, I have an MBA from Ball State. And now I teach business and marketing at Ivy Tech in Bloomington. And I'm also on the city's commission for sustainability. And I do real estate rentals. And so I'm working on a sustainable rental development in Bloomington. So yeah, today I'm going to talk about 3 modern things. Right? Digital marketing, big data or data analytics, and sustainability. Those are all really modern things, right? I'm going to show how digital marketing and big data have helped propel the sustainability movement, okay? And finally, what that means for us as we operate in that world where we have these, this new climate. But before we talk about those modern things, we're going to go back to ancient history. 23 years ago, in 1995, when I was here as a freshman. And now, if you can imagine, how many people here are first generation college students? Anybody? Yeah. So I was a first generation college student. Did you raise your hand? No, sorry. Okay, I was a first generation college student. I didn't know anthropology from women's studies. All this stuff was, it freaked me out a little bit. It was pretty intimidating. And so my first year, I went for math, right? Math was familiar. I was always good at that in high school. I ended up being a math minor. So I'm in my math class in the first week, and our professor, and I'm thinking this is going to be great, it's going to be easy. And our professor makes this announcement that we're all going to have to go to this web server and get something that's called an email address, and we're going to be submitting our homework over email. Okay, so you guys are like, what is the big deal, right? That is not a big deal. So I'm going to give you guys an idea about what life was like back then. Okay, and this was not that long ago, right? This is about 20 years ago. So today, as you guys I'm sure know, most Americans use email, right? Back then, though, there were only 23,000 websites in 1995. 23,000. So that seems like a decent number, right? 23,000. Well, consider that the year before there were only 3,000 websites. Okay, so it's astronomical growth, right? How many websites do you guys think there are today? Does anybody know? Anybody want to guess?
Over 1 billion?
Yeah. I think there's just over 1 billion today. And so, yeah, it's been explosive growth, right? It's grown 43,000 times the number of websites since 1995. So back then, there were a few websites back then that there are now, but not very many. So Google was not yet a twinkle in their founder's eye. There were a couple of websites back then that we know of today. Does anyone want to guess which ones? It was their first year. You want to guess?
AOL.
Possibly, actually. I don't know. eBay and Amazon.
Oh.
It was both their first year in 1995, right? And so you guys, at your age, you're like, oh, those are like, ancient history. Those websites have been around forever. This was their first year, right? I'd never heard of them. Yeah, my point is digital marketing didn't exist, right? Back then, the internet as we know it didn't exist. The only people that were into the internet and really wanted to know about it were like military people, some nerds, and some eccentric math professors at DePauw. So when it was suggested, that I'm going to go on this web server, open an email address, I mean, he might as well told me, you're going to go into an alien spaceship and fly off, because that's how foreign it sounded to me. And so as a budding liberal arts student, I went to see my professor, right, to try to convince him of how unreasonable I thought this demand was, right? It's a math class. I know how to do math. Why should I do this? So I go to see him, and I give him all the excuses I can think of, right? I came from a low income background. My parents couldn't afford a computer. I barely have typing skills. This isn't fair for me compared with other students. Everything I could, and then I threw in some tears for good measure, right? Because I was, 18-year-old, I wasn't ashamed to cry, right, for a good cause. And so I was totally confident that this is gonna work, and he was gonna see how unreasonable this is. So he just sat there, and then he just, kind of like shrugged and was like, okay, what do you got? What's left? Give me some more. So then I was like really mad, and I let him have it, right? And I said, email has nothing to do with math. I'm never going to use it, and this is a completely ridiculous, goose chase. Luckily for me, he didn't get mad and like kick me out or anything like that. He just smiled and said, trust me, you're going to have to use email one day, and don't worry, you'll be okay. I'll help you do it. Everything will be fine, right? And so that was, does anybody want to guess who that was? I know you know.
Lou Smoger.
It was Smoger. How do you know? Did I tell you the story?
Mean to everybody. No.
Yeah.
He's helpful to everybody.
It was Smoger, yeah. And so, what do you know? He was right. I opened the email account in the grungy basement of Anderson dorm, where they had like 2 computers that we all shared. This is before they had computer labs in the library that we could use and things like that. And you know what? The sky didn't fall. I didn't catch any diseases from those disgusting dorm computers. And my typing improved with some practice. Actually, my first couple of years, some of the professors here let me turn in my work handwritten. So I have to thank them for that. But so yeah, 20 years later, right, little did I know I would be working as a digital marketing strategist, right, for a company where it's my job to know more about email than anyone else that I know, okay? So yeah, 20 years later, I know the best days and times to send an email to get people to open them. I know how to write a subject line to get people to open it, how to do A/B testing, how to optimize the actual email content so that it'll render across different email clients, because there's a million out there, right? So I know all that stuff now. So digital marketing includes lots of other stuff than that, right? And I'm sure you guys know. So what are some other things that digital marketing includes besides email marketing that you guys know of?
Social media.
Yeah. Okay. How else? How else do you do digital marketing for your company or organization? Social media, your website, right? So a lot of the times digital marketing is thought of, this is a way to drive traffic to a website, right? So sometimes the marketing is thought of as outside of the website. But yeah, your website will have to do with it. Email, blogs, video, search advertising, right? You can do ads when people search for things. And you can just do good organic website search advertising. So basically make sure your website comes up in the list of search results, right? So today, as I'm sure you know, and I got here a little early and I was talking with your Professor Larry, and I know Marilyn also believes this, and Jonathan, that, you know, as you guys know, today, digital marketing is just marketing. That's what marketing is today. Like, you need to understand that stuff. So you can't really affect any message or be effective in any kind of communication today without the internet, right? You could try to organize a party or really get anything, any big event or any kind of major communication. Try to do it without the internet. It's going to be a lot less effective today, right? So 82% of people use smartphones to research their products today before they buy something. Okay, so now we're carrying this into the business sphere. Internet ad spend is higher than TV ad spend today. And that probably doesn't surprise you folks, but it might surprise some of the people closer to my age in the room. So the ads are different today, right? Consumers expect the advertising to be somewhat educated, targeted to them, kind of customized, right? The old sales tactics don't work. So what are the kind of traditional tactics of media and advertising would be a more shotgun approach, right? So you put a message on a billboard, you put a TV ad out there, put an ad on the radio, and it's the same ad everyone's going to get, basically, and you hope the right person hears the ad, sees the ad at about the right time, right? But there's a lot of like hope and guesswork taking place, right? Because you don't really control who's listening to the radio, and more importantly, are they going to be listening to your ad at the moment when they're ready to buy, right? Is that going to really make a difference at all, or is it just something they're going to not even listen to? So digital marketing has changed all this, right? Digital marketing was a huge boon for marketers because it allows them the tools, which you all now have, to reach your audience, to make sure you have the right person, reach them at the right time in the right way, okay? And so one of the biggest ways that companies do this that you should all know about, hopefully some of you guys have you guys heard the term content marketing? Okay, raise your hand if you have. Got two, okay. So yeah, 90% of all companies do content marketing. Some of them may not call it that. So what is content marketing? Do you know what it is? A little bit about it?
I thought content marketing would be like managing like the images and the content that you're going to put online. Like making a content counter, like that kind of stuff, like the organizational.
Yeah.
Figuring out what images, videos, etc. that you're going to use.
Yeah, great. Yeah, so content marketing is where you are managing the content, right? But you're specifically grooming that content in order to give your audience value, right? So the whole gist behind content marketing is that you're not just like sending out this message, hey, buy our stuff, buy our stuff, buy our stuff. We're actually going to tell them something totally useful to their lives, right? And we may not even tell them buy our stuff in that same message, right? So it's a video on Lowe's of, how to stain your deck. That's content marketing, right? There doesn't even have to be a call to action in that video that says, go to Lowe's, buy our stain, right? That's just something that you kind of know because you're going to rely, they're going to use their stain. You're going to rely on them as the experts, and you're going to want to go there to buy their stain, right? So content marketing has changed the game as far as what content that you would consider as marketing material, right? So when companies have blogs, when they have these how-to videos, when they post anything on social media other than buy this, that's content marketing, okay? So content marketing really changed the game, and a lot of marketers, any marketer who hasn't gotten that message, it's fair to say is falling behind. And the message is, you don't just say buy this, buy this, buy this anymore. You actually give value to improve your customers' lives, and that's then how they're going to respect you. Okay, so a lot of you guys, with your ages, you grew up surrounded by this content marketing. You're just going to expect that, right? That's the kind of marketing you expect. You want it to be valuable. You want it to inform you. You want it to be relevant to your life, right? Okay. One of the best things about content marketing is that it's low cost. So any organization can make a name for themselves if they produce good content. So this isn't just business, right? You can think about news media organizations like the Young Turks, right? They started having online, news show, right? And now they're huge. So there was a famous cartoon in the New Yorker in the early 1990s, and some of you guys may have seen this before. And there's two dogs, and they're standing in front of a computer when they're like on the computer using it, and one of the dogs says to the other one, "On the internet, no one knows you're a dog." That's the best thing about the internet, So the thing is, if you're making all this great material, it's not just that nobody knows who you are. They don't even care, okay? So if you can make outstanding content for me that's going to be useful to my life, right? If you can say, I want to build a deck in my yard next summer, right? I don't have any particular skills besides hammering, right? If you can make a video that can teach me how to build my own deck in my yard, I don't care if you are Lowe's or if you're a freelance handyman trying to, do advertising, or if you're just some 12-year-old kid in their basement, right? I don't care who you are. You're gonna have my respect and attention, right? So that's the idea behind content marketing, is that you'll get the respect, you'll get the attention from your customers by adding value to their lives, by creating that high-value content. So we all have an audience, right? So you guys are most of you guys media fellows that are in here right now? Yeah? Okay. So, you're not all going to end up being marketers, right? I know that. And so this talk isn't necessarily aimed at marketing per se. I was a philosophy major. I'm not a marketer now per se, but marketing is really just communications, right? Communications, media, marketing. It's kind of a broad. Those are broad terms that all describe different types of communication, right? So with any kind of communication, as I'm sure you guys have learned in class, you have a target, right? You have a message, and you have a target. So sometimes that target is going to be a recruiter for a job. Maybe sometimes it's going to be your professor. That's your target in your assignment. Sometimes it's going to be your boss. The question is always going to be, how can you create the best content, right, and then get the right people to see it and then get their attention? So this is where data can come in. This is where data analysis can come in. And this is what separates, the other things that separates old media from new media. So one of them is that with new media, they do expect the content to be more relevant and useful to their lives. But the other thing is that with new media, it's informed, right? So we don't just blast those messages out there and hope that it reaches the right person. We actually use data analysis to help not only shape that message, but send it to the right person at the right time, in the right way, and just as often as we should, so that we don't annoy them, but that we stay relevant in their minds so that once they're ready to make a purchase, they remember us. So I guess the big picture is that it's taken a lot of the guesswork out of marketing and communications. Okay, so we have answers. We have answers now. We don't need to have hunches. So why did this big data trend happen now? Why has it just exploded in the last 10, 20 years? What's different now? I mean, we've had algorithms since the 9th century, Persia. So what's different now? Why did it just explode in the last 20 years? Data analysis.
How easy to get
Why is it easy? Okay, yeah, so we can store more data on computer chips and things like that. Yeah, yeah.
Everybody's got a phone in their pocket that collects everything that they do.
Yeah, so yeah, that's a great one. So people literally have this mobile tracker strapped to them all the time. It's sometimes two, right? And all of those things, those processors and those trackers are connected through the interwebs, right? They're connected by the internet, and we didn't have that before, right? So yeah, we have this awesome processing power. We can store the data, we can track people, and it's all connected through the internet. And so that's why it's called the information age, right? What we're living in now. So we didn't have enough data. So this is the really crux that you guys need to understand, is that the reason why data analysis and big data just got huge the last 20 years is because you need to have enough data to do it. You need to have lots of mass and loads of data. Okay, it's not the kind of data that you can aggregate and track manually, right? You need to have lots, like more than 10,000 cases, right, to do data analysis. So that's why we finally have the amounts of data. So data mining, big data, data analysis, these are all loose terms that describe extracting actionable information from lots of data, right? So again, I'm talking huge amounts of data. And so it's not just any kind of information, right? It's actionable information, meaning that you can do something with it. So, it's a very quantitative thing, data analysis, but there's a very qualitative aspect to it, which is, okay, you've got all this junk of data and zeros and ones on a computer. Now, what are you going to do with it, right? How is it going to inform your life? So that's what data analysis is. So just to give you some history, because what I'm kind of trying to do in this talk is give you guys a history lesson for digital marketing and data analysis and sustainability, since they've all been around since you guys have been alive, mostly. So I kind of want to give you guys a history lesson. So the amount of data that exists right now, as it's stored in computers and things like that, doubles every 2 years. It doubles every 2 years. Every 2 days, we create as much data as existed in that amount of time from the dawn of civilization until 2003. Okay, that's 3 years after I graduated from here. So every 2 days, we create the same amount of data that existed from the dawn of time until 2003. So as you can imagine, we have a wealth of data, right? But what we still have is a shortage of knowledge. There's a shortage of people who can take that data and make sense of it, right? Because the computers aren't going to do that for us. Computers can't tell computers how to make things useful for people. Only people can do that, okay? So what we need are people who can take that data, analyze it, and make it useful for people. So it reminds me of the, is it Coleridge, where he said water, water everywhere and not a drop to drink. So that's sort of the data issue, right? We have so much data everywhere, but unfortunately, actually making it actionable and useful to us is still a big challenge. So how do we make that data drinkable? How do we make it useful? Bless you. So some of you guys have studied statistics. So you guys know what regression analysis is, right? Any kind of predictive analytics. And normally data mining, when they're coming up with algorithms, they're using this kind of regression analysis. That's not something that you necessarily have to know how to do yourself, right? But it's certainly useful. I think you guys all should have a statistics course. Hopefully that's something that's required at DePauw. But I think you guys all should take a statistics course before you graduate. So yeah, we use this kind of math problems, right, that create algorithms that control what we see. We know this. We hear about it on the news all the time, that they're like these godlike algorithms used by Google and Facebook and all those internet media sites that determine everything about our lives, and that they're all controlled by algorithms, right? We know that. They're updated weekly. It's a big secret. People who work in digital marketing are constantly trying to figure out, how did they update the new algorithm? How can I change what I'm doing to be more effective? In non-math terms, algorithms and regression analysis, all those things are really about correlations, okay? And so it's just saying, if you have A and you have B, then you're this much likely to have C happen, okay? That's predictive analytics. I'm sure you guys have seen some examples of where you would use data analytics, but I can give you some from different areas. So one that's really well known, you might have heard about, is that Target, the big retail store, they can predict a woman's due date who's pregnant based on the purchases that they make. So they use this information to start marketing kind of like baby products to them based on things like how many cotton balls, I don't know, lotion and stuff like that they buy. And they actually got in trouble a few years ago because they were marketing these baby products to someone, and it turned out it was a girl that was still living at home, and she knew she was pregnant, but her parents didn't know, and they found this email message, addressed to her with all these baby products, and apparently the dad, irate, runs down to Target, or he emails them, and he's irate saying, why are you sending my teenage daughter, baby ad stuff, and apparently it turned out Target knew better than him that his daughter actually was pregnant. So this is the power that these algorithms have, right? They know they know stuff that we don't. So they can be used for stuff other than selling stuff, right? That's the good news. So there's a nonprofit in California. They've actually used data analytics. So they've looked at the histories of homeless people to predict some of the root causes of homelessness, right? Because we know in a general sense, things like poverty and mental illness and addiction. But they made it more specific, where they can say, okay, if you lost your job at this time and you have this in your history, you're this much more likely, and they can help treat the causes of homelessness. Nowadays, doctors, hopefully my doctors or your doctors, are using biometric data to choose the treatments based on the likelihood that they'll be effective, based on your body type and other things about your medical histories. So another one that's sort of scandalous that you guys might remember a few years ago was when Facebook got in trouble because they were manipulating what you saw in your Facebook feed, right? So some people, they had like control groups, and so some people were seeing things that were more negative, and other people were seeing things that were more positive, and they were tracking to see if that would affect whether they were like happy or sad. So then they would track to see what they posted and whether their messages were positive or negative. Do you guys remember that scandal? You remember it. You remember it. Yeah. It was only a few years ago. So that's one of the more ethically questionable uses of data analytics, right? I mean, they're literally making, like say this part of the room happy and this part of the room sad, just for their little test, just to see, hey, can we do it? Does it work? Another example that I like to use, because this actually did happen to me, was when I was looking at mortgages, and I was going to different bank websites and looking at their interest rate for mortgages. I think I did that on a Friday or Saturday night, and then like the next Monday morning, I got an email in my inbox from Chase, my current banker, saying, and it literally had a picture of the mortgage banker at the bottom saying, would you like to set up an appointment with me to look at mortgages? Here's my availabilities this week. And I remember thinking, what? I didn't contact them. All I did was browse the website. That's all I did, right? And so now, knowing what I know about, how that works with, they have cookies on the website, and since I was their customer, they had my email address, right? So every time I visit that website, they're tracking where I'm going and what I'm looking at. So they had it set up with their, data analytic, their digital marketing software to automatically send me an email because I visited that web page. Say, by the way, are you shopping for a mortgage? Here's our times. Come talk to us. So when that happened, it was a little freaky because I knew that it wasn't just a coincidence, but I was actually really happy because I did want to talk to a mortgage banker. So it was useful to me. So those are just a couple of ways that data analytics are used in different types of organizations today. If you want to do some DIY data analytics that you can do without regression analysis or anything like that, a really easy and fun way is with word clouds, okay? Right, so word clouds. So again, data analytics doesn't have to be predictive analysis, right? It can just be any kind of analytics from a large amount of data that helps you make sense of it. So for instance, if you're trying to get a certain job, say you really want to work for a certain company, get a certain position that they're advertising, and this is something I've done a lot, and I think it definitely helps. You can go to their website, right? Or you could even go to the LinkedIn profiles of certain people that you're going to be interviewing, right? And then you can go to their website, copy some of the text, maybe go to a certain page where they're talking about their strategies, things that are really important to them, things that are coming ahead. Take that text, put it into a word cloud, right? And then just analyze what those words are. Maybe, you'll see some keywords pop up that you want to make sure to sprinkle throughout your cover letter and resume, or even in a job interview, right? In one of my jobs, I used basic math without any regression analysis to analyze the subject lines for our customers. So I worked in Beckman Coulter Life Sciences in Indianapolis, and so our customers were all scientists, right? We were selling, sometimes $100,000 equipment to scientists. So it's a very different field than trying to attract your average everyday customer. So one of the first things I did when I got there is I realized I don't know anything about the mind of scientists. I don't know how they think about purchasing. I have no idea what kind of emails they'd want to open, right? So what I did was I took the data of all the past emails, which were in the email software system, extracted those into Excel, and I just did some basic research, right? And so what I found was the subject lines that I literally took the subject lines and then I ranked them by the ones who had the highest open rate, because the open rate comes in percentages, right? So I ranked them by the open rates, and I took like the top 25% and the bottom 25%, and then I just took those and analyzed them for different things. And I found, and you can do this for any kind of audience because every audience is different, but what I found was a certain average subject length that they're more likely to open. I did word clouds and I found the words that they're most likely to respond to positively. I found the words they're most likely to respond to negatively. And in general, it actually was pretty controversial at the office because there were people who'd been working there 10, 20, 30 years in that field, and they thought, we know scientists, you just got here, you don't know anything. Well, I actually proved that these people they've been sending emails to with all these big words trying to sound very educated and scientific, I found out that the scientists actually prefer the small, fun, everyday words. Those are the emails they're more likely to open, right? So like when Barack Obama was running for president, his digital marketing team was like famous. They were awesome. And he famously sent an email with just one word in the subject line, hey. And that had the highest open rate, right, of his campaign. So these are things that don't instinctively come to people, right? Operating on a hunch and on your instinct, and I've worked here 30 years, I know our market, all that stuff is thrown out the window when you get these tools, data analytics. You can literally show, right, different. So, yeah, so that was at Beckman Coulter Life Sciences. In addition to that, when I ended up learning regression analysis and doing data analysis, I ended up creating an algorithm that would predict with 86% accuracy whether or not someone who, a lead, someone who had filled out a form on their website, was actually going to buy a product. And 86% accuracy may not sound very impressive, but at the time, the way the way they were operating was pretty much on some guy's hunch. It was like, oh, well, if they say this. So the questions on the form were things like, their name, their job title, the business unit they're interested in, and then they would ask them something like, how likely are you to purchase our product within the next 12 months? Okay, something really innocuous like that. And so before then, people had assumed that people were answered honestly, right? That's the only way that program works or that method works. Well, unfortunately, people don't always answer honestly, not that they're bad people, but they don't necessarily want to be contacted by marketers, right? And so with the regression analysis, I found that people who said that they were likely to, who said they were more likely to purchase within 18 months were actually the ones who were more likely to buy than the ones who said they were going to purchase within like 6 months, the ones who we normally had marked as the highest, most likely to buy. And again, this was like hugely controversial, knocked everything that they had been doing for the last 20 years on their heads. They had, vice presidents who were paid a lot of money to sit in a room and think, if someone answers this question this way, we should score it this many points. And if someone answers this question that way, we should score it that many points. And that's the method that, I call the Hippo Method, the highest paid person's opinion, because they literally would sit in a room, right, and argue, well, I think it should be this many points, and, and without any data at all to back it up, right? But the data was there. So I get there, I'm like, you guys literally have 10 years of customer data here, let's use it. So you can do a lot with data, right? You can turn things around, and, unfortunately, a lot of organizations, not just businesses, media organizations, any kind of organizations, haven't taken advantage of the data that they have, right? Okay. So yeah, people lie. Predictive models, algorithms, they have no hidden agendas, no politics. They don't have egos. They haven't been here 20 years. They don't have any interests, right? Algorithms, all they see are correlations, okay? The algorithm doesn't know why. It doesn't care. It doesn't care why someone who answered the question this way is more likely to buy or not, right? So that's why the algorithms are better at this than we are, right? Because we've got all these hidden agendas and, oh, I thought this and I said this in this meeting a few years ago and I want to make sure I sound like I was smart, and they don't have those problems. So now that we have data, right, it's no longer good enough, in my opinion, to be doing anything at your job that's not based on data, right? If you're doing stuff based on a hunch these days, I think that's not going to cut it. So the best practice in all fields, they call in some kind of statistical certainty, right? Because the data does exist now. And so just like the scientific revolution raised the bar for logic and philosophy, so that now things actually have to make sense a little bit more than just a religious explanation, right? So as the scientific revolution happened, now we're having a data revolution that's doing much the same thing. Okay, so people can't just go, well, based on my experience, or I'm the highest paid person, and so I know, actually, that we have data to answer those questions. And so the standards are higher, right? And I think that's a good thing. So we're not just talking about data and tech, right? Because now we're talking about we're getting into the cloudy waters of morality, right? So we're talking about truth. Things like honesty, but also transparency, openness. These are things you hear about today in regards to marketing, technology, sustainability, right? Companies are urged to be transparent, open, those kind of things. So all those things are linked, right? It's not a coincidence that digital marketing, data analytics, sustainability, that these are all having their moment at the same time, right? They're linked because the data, the same drivers of digital marketing and big data, the internet, all these things, this is pushing people towards more transparency, more honesty, more veracity, right? People want the truth. Right now, we're just having all this talk about fake news, right? Maybe before there was some fake news, before the internet, there was the Inquirer, where aliens landed every week, and it wasn't a scandal. There were some people who believed the Inquirer, some people didn't, but it wasn't really a big deal. Nowadays, it's a big deal. It's really important to people whether something's true or not, because it's so easy just to find out whether it's true or not, right? Now we can, so it's not good enough anymore to say, well, that's my hunch. I believe it just because I do. So digital marketing is fundamentally different because it's informed with data, right? And it's not just any data, it's big data. So now your marketing, as we talked about, that comes to you, it's data-driven, it's personalized, it's segmented, it's targeted, it's customized, right? All these products out there today that's customized, it's coming across multiple channels, and it's timed into the buying process. So now the marketing people and the marketing software are thinking, they want to read your mind. Where are you in the buying process? Have you just heard of their brand? Or have you been thinking the last couple of days about buying into it, and now you're ready to be pushed over the edge, right? They want to know where you are in that buying process. So all these things make digital marketing vastly more effective than old marketing, okay? So now we're going to get a little philosophical. Sorry. Maybe some of you guys are happy about that. I don't know. So digital marketing, as we talked about, it is a tool for communication, right? We get over 3,000 messages a day to buy stuff, right? Buy this, buy that. And these tools, digital marketing and data analytics, having these tools sort of make you superhuman communicators in a very real way, right? Because the human side of things is based on our instincts and our hunches, our best guesses and our experience, right? The computer side of things is based on data. So you're literally, to use like the Marvel comic people, you're literally like Iron Man here, right, with your helmet, where you can actually see things and know things that are superhuman, right? So now the question is, what are you going to do with these powers? What are we going to do with these powers? Are we going to use them for good or evil? So let's go back to some of these examples I talked about a second ago, and let's think about, are they good or evil? Okay. So let's start with the easy one, the homelessness project, where they're looking at the causes of homelessness. They're using the personal histories of people to decide, to try to ease homelessness or try to help stop it. So let's take a vote. So how many people think that is morally good use of data analytics? I'm going to put my hand up every time, so okay. So the majority of people here. Does anyone have a problem with it? Why?
Embedded bias
Okay.
in algorithms.
And so how so?
So like, there's the argument that you brought particular subsets of data into the algorithm's initial functioning.
Mm-hmm.
Then it started to build off of that biased data.
Right.
And then the issues arise with like Amazon wasn't sending packages to certain environments because they had more criminal
Right.
aspects linked to them. So I just worry that there might be like marginalizing groups or biasing against people because of the algorithm.
Sure, and that's definitely a risk in all kinds of data analysis. So what she's saying is, the actual group of data that you use, sure, it needs to be big enough, but it's still not necessarily representative of all the people in the world, right? It's still not representative that way. So that's a good point. It's not always going to be perfectly representative. But at this point, we're talking about, ethically speaking, have we violated someone's privacy or really wronged anyone in doing this, right? Generally speaking, most of us are like, okay, the homelessness thing, we'll let that one pass, okay? But that's a good point. Okay, so the next one I'm going to bring up, so the Chase Mortgage one, where it was, where they were, they saw me go to their website and they emailed me. What do you think about that? Was that ethically questionable, or okay? Was that okay? I think it's okay. I actually thought it was useful. I wanted to be contacted, so just meant I didn't have to contact him.
You would consider it intrusive?
Well, so that's the thing, right? Some people would. So, you know, that's why we need to talk about these things, right? So some people would go, oh, you know, I don't like I'm not comfortable with the fact that they knew, but because I've done some of these things in my job myself, I'm comfortable with it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But yeah, let's go on. So, okay, what about the job interview thing that I mentioned? What if you do a word cloud of their website and then you start peppering your what do you think? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Why?
It's public information. In
Okay.
that case, it's like the example you said, it's on a LinkedIn bio for the company.
Right.
They wanted to present themselves as whatever they
Mhm.
used.
It's public information. Anyone, any other candidate could have done it, right? Okay. All right. You don't think the fact that the interviewer may not have known that you did it that way, maybe they just think that that you're the perfect fit because you say all the right words.
They
I
can
think
say
that's
they can-
smart.
You don't think that's deceptive?
I think it's smart.
I think it's smart too because I've done it. Okay, now let's get to the Facebook one where Facebook was going, okay, we're going to show you guys happy stuff, we're going to show you guys negative stuff, and then we're going to see if we can play God and determine your mood for today. Does anyone think that's okay? Yeah, I don't think that's okay either. I think that one is obviously questionable, right? So, how do we? Okay, what are some of the deciders when we look? Why is the Facebook example different? What's different about that? Yeah,
I think it's dangerous because it can lead to conformity.
conformity.
And it can be more controlling, like this big brother playing God or playing some type of role that
Mhm.
the person may not even know is being played, and they're just manipulating.
Yeah, I mean that's literally what they did there, right? And so it's showing that, well, if Facebook can do this without having to ask anyone's permission. They didn't have to go through any kind of government council or anything. They just did it because some engineer thought it sounded fun, you know? Right. So I think, you know, the crux of it is going to be deception, right? It's going to come down to deception. Are you deceiving people? For what reason, right? Because, I mean, this is like in a basic philosophy class, right? So we lie all the time, right? We have white lies in our society. Some lies are okay. We justify some lies for different reasons, right? In fact, our social norms expect us to lie in lots of situations, especially in a business environment, right? You're not expected when someone says, hey, how are you? You know, in a business meeting, you're not expected to, you know, tell them about like your cat that just died and your aunt who's on life support. Like, you know, you're supposed to tell them how great you are and how confident and happy you are. Those are white lies, right? So my point here isn't that it's easy to decide, or it's not to tell you, well, this is okay and that's not okay, but it's really to drive home the fact that, like, you're at a liberal arts college, you know, and that's an awesome thing because that means you're being taught to see the big picture. You're not going to be a cog in a wheel who learns a couple tools and then just does what they're told, and then they go work for some organization and just does everything they're told, right? You're at a liberal arts college. You're being taught those skills where you can put the pieces together and think for yourselves and go, does this violate my moral code? Okay, so I really encourage you guys all, if you haven't, to take a basic ethics class, some kind of philosophy class, right? And then exercise those skills on a daily basis, right? Why are we comfortable lying to someone over email because we're paid to, when we wouldn't be comfortable lying to that person to their face, right? Or whoever that Facebook engineer who thought of that example, they probably wouldn't be as comfortable doing it in a face-to-face environment, right? If in the face-to-face environment they literally controlled this person's day and just made their day awful, right? Not only would that be probably criminal, right? But I'm sure they feel different about it face-to-face. So, I really encourage you guys to hold yourself to a higher standard and, look at your, first of all, here in college, determine your moral compass, right? Find out what it is. And then, throughout your career, check yourself back to it. Make sure that you're following that compass. I've turned down jobs, especially recently, some very higher paying jobs than I have now, simply because they were telling me to do things like, well, we have a paying monthly subscriber business model, and we want you to figure out with data analytics, figure out how do some of those people, because see, the thing is, their customers forget that they have a monthly subscription. You guys all do this, right? So they wanted me to figure out with data analysis how they are accidentally reminded, and then, then they're going to stop the subscription. Right. And so they literally told me this. And so I ended up telling them, as politely as I could, I think they need a better business model, where they're actually adding value to people's lives, because their customers were actually a lot of elderly people. I mean, there's no way I was going to take that job, right? But someone who maybe didn't go to a liberal arts college, right, and who was just thinking just about the technology and I'm doing my job and I'm selling things, right, they wouldn't necessarily put all those pieces together and see the big picture like I did. So I highly encourage you to, find your moral compass, follow it. I've never regretted turning down a job that I turned down because of, moral or ethical reasons. You never will regret that. I promise you. So yeah, take advantage of your liberal arts education, follow your moral compass, and feel free to contact me if you guys have any questions about digital marketing and data analysis. I have some cards, so yeah, and Jonathan knows how to contact me too. Thanks.
And so speaking of questions, if you have questions right now, if you want to ask them, we're ready to go. I'll just give you the mic and you can ask a question. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I had can you hear me okay? I had an internship with digital marketing, and I really struggled with it because I felt like I was creating channels for
Sorry.
That's okay. But I really struggled with it because I felt like I was creating channels for conformity. And I was leading people to do something without allowing the person to think for him or herself.
Right.
So I just wondered from that perspective, and obviously there.
And you were doing marketing?
Lines, but yeah.
So you were selling something?
Yeah, a medical product. But it's
Mhm.
this idea that you're telling someone she needs it before she knows she needs it.
Yeah.
And I think that causes conformity, that takes away like freedom of thought.
Mhm.
So I have a lot of conflicts with that, and I just
Mhm.
wondered if you could speak to that.
Sure. Yeah, I think that our current business system, right, not to sound like too much of a radical here, but the capitalist system is based on the idea that we treat consumers as objects. That is another word for objectification. We literally objectify them, exploit them, manipulate them to buy things to, hit shareholder value. That's what we currently do. So, what I really would encourage is, to think about marketing from a more sustainable perspective. So there are some good books on sustainable marketing that I can recommend to you. So a big part of that is to see the consumer as a human being and to think of their whole life cycle. So if you're telling them to buy something, that might be okay, but you need to be thinking about not only how this product is going to affect them now, how is it going to affect them in 20 years, how is it going to affect their generations from now, right? And how is your communication affecting their free will and freedom of thought? I think these are questions that we all should be thinking about, and I think that personally, marketers and communicators should have that conversation with each other and with themselves, right? And decide whether maybe marketing's not the right job for you, just for that reason, because you're not comfortable manipulating people, or maybe you're going to turn out to be a wonderful marketer for a product that's more sustainable or a service that's more sustainable, and maybe where people are more comfortable with you marketing in a way that you're comfortable with.
And don't you think it's also dependent on the company she works for?
Definitely.
The product that she
Yeah, if you're selling cigarettes, it's a lot different than if you're selling like medical equipment, right? Like life-saving things. Sure. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and digital marketing is helping that problem, right? Because with digital marketing, it just opens the field up for how you can reach people, right? So yeah, we can be more invasive and we can be more sneaky and manipulative, but we can also be more honest and open and useful to people with digital marketing. So it really just depends on, how are you going to use it? But I agree that currently, unfortunately, consumers are basically treated like, just objects to be manipulated.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So speaking of what kind of company you work for, what kind of organization you work for, so DePaul is an organization. It's not a company, but it's an organization that is now engaging in a very aggressive marketing campaign. And has to create materials and that are that showcase students in ways that maybe they're participating knowingly or not. What kind of things do you think in that digital world where a place like DePaul, which is predicated on teaching sort of core values and ethical and moral reasoning, do we have different responsibilities in terms of our marketing?
I think so. Yeah. I'm a really big believer of, especially for educational institutions, to let the students do some of the marketing. I've always been, in all my jobs, said, hey, let's get some interns, simply because, like Generation Z and, millennials before them, they're going to be a lot better at these stuff than we are. So for that reason, I say, yeah, let the students do it, but also so that they can be thinking of these kind of ethical questions, right? They can take their philosophy class and apply this. But, I think in general, it all goes back to the question, what message are you communicating? Okay, is that an honest message? And for what purpose? What are you getting out of it? Is it an honest deal, right? Because there's nothing inherently bad with business, right? I have an MBA, I do business, and I live in Bloomington. It's a super liberal town, and lots of people meet me, and they go, oh, you're a business professor. I know all about you. I'm not even interested in, they don't even need to talk to me anymore. They've got me all figured out, right? But, it's not that way. I don't think that way. I think, business can definitely be used for good, right? There's sustainable business, there's social entrepreneurship, and all that comes up by addressing the problems that haven't been addressed, right? And so I'm going to be doing, real estate development that's sustainable, that's using solar powered, and that's ethical, and has an affordable housing element. And that's something that's easy for me to come up with because everyone else is doing such a bad job, right? And so for the people who actually have these higher standards, in my opinion, that's where the future is going. The standards are getting higher and higher of consumers, right? They're not dumb. They're getting smarter and smarter. And the businesses and the business leaders who can catch wind of that, right, and who can bring themselves up to that higher standard, those are the ones I think who are going to end up on top in the long run.